Not that much more serious.
You're all set.
Thank you. Good evening. This is a meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow. Obviously, we are meeting again via teleconference, and we are doing so according to the governor's emergency order from last spring, which allows us and other municipalities to do so. I would note that this meeting was noticed on the village bulletin board, on the village website, and through other local means, and that the public will have an opportunity to participate in this meeting in our normal times later on in the meeting, as well as observe the entire meeting. I will begin the meeting now by taking roll. Trustee Spiro.
Here.
Trustee Scaglione.
Here.
Trustee Levy.
Here.
Trustee Gonzalez.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Rosenblum.
Here.
Oh, Trustee Gebler.
Here.
And we have a quorum. Thank you. We will begin our meeting as we always do in our regular meetings by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Wherever you are, would you please stand? Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic
of God, indivisible, with
liberty and justice
for all.
Please be seated. We also begin our meetings, our regular meetings, by remembering those members of our community who have passed since our last meeting. And I would note that there have been several. They are Sudarshan Narasahim of Lakeview Avenue, Ruben Lopez Ortiz of Beekman Avenue, Garadina Maria Villa Mejia of Gordon Avenue, Eleanor Carter Brome of Kendall Way, Patricia Ann Chepica of Pine Street. We also lost a couple of other members of our community who are not residents in our community. One of those is Dr. Bruce Heckman, who's a longtime doctor and well-known doctor in our community. And we should acknowledge his passing, as well as Sean Connolly, a young man at the age of 49 who currently lives in Tennessee, longtime former resident of Sleepy Hollow, and class of '89. And I also want to make sure that we acknowledge the passing of Hugh Jones. I know that when he first passed, we inadvertently did not name him. And Hugh, longtime neighbor in Sleepy Hollow, member of various boards, just a great contributor, a genuinely decent man, and known to many, many people in our community, and just a tremendous loss to see him go. But the thoughts are with all of their families and with their friends. If we could have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. We will continue with our meeting. First up, we have a warrant that was distributed earlier. Before we go to that, I just want to note that County Executive George Latimer would like to join us during the meeting. And so when he does, we'll just bring him in wherever we may be in the agenda. But first up, we will consider the warrant. If there are any questions on the warrant, please direct them to the treasurer who has joined us. For the record, Sarah, could you state the total amount of the warrant? And I know there's a couple of large items, and if you could elaborate on those, please.
Sure. The amount of the warrant is $869,881.79. There was one large amount, a wire of $300 $1,027.50. That is a grant that we have with Historic Hudson Valley. So we receive that money and we wire it directly to Historic Hudson Valley. And then we also had a $90,000, 546.48 payment to Brown and Brown, which is our third installment of our liability insurance.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the warrant? And if so, please direct them to the treasurer. And if there are not, can I get a motion to approve the warrant?
Move adoption of the warrant.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded by Trustee Scaglione and Deputy Mayor Rosenblum. Any questions on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Sorry. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That was unanimous. You're welcome, Sarah.
Oh, I couldn't hear you. Thank you very much.
We'll always say thank you. So now go pay the bills.
I wasn't sure if it was passed. Thank you.
It was with enthusiasm.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the minutes of January 12th, which were also distributed earlier to members of the board. Any amendments, changes to the minutes? Not, can I get a motion to approve the minutes of January 12th?
Motion to approve the minutes of January 12th.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded by Trustees Gebler and Scaglione. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? And I believe that was unanimous as well. Thank you. I will save whatever announcements, save two till later on in the evening. But just a quick reminder to folks, February 16th is Tax Grievance Day. So if you intend to file a grievance, make sure you file it before 8 p.m. that day. And if you have any questions, detailed questions about grievances and how to file them, you can reach out to the Sleepy Hollow assessor at this email address. And it is assessor@sleepyhollowny.org. So assessor@sleepyhollowny.org. So as we get closer to the 16th, I'm sure council will advise us. Normally on Tax Grievance Day, we are in Village Hall in a meeting and for 4 hours to allow people a sufficient time to file their grievances if they haven't filed them before that date. And we'll update you with how that's going to work this year with the pandemic and the restrictions that we're all under. I also want to remind everyone that village offices remain closed to the public. We are open for business, but the offices themselves are closed to the public. You can reach out via phone or email, and there is a drop box in front of Village Hall for your convenience for payments, correspondence, or anything else that you want to pass on. So please use email and phone to reach out to us or anybody in Village Hall that you need to contact. And all of our contact information is on the village website. I should also point out again, hey, sign up for the village email blast. You can do that online too. It's pretty helpful for a lot of different reasons, but it's a good source of information. Keep yourself informed. All right, we're going to move on to reports. First up is Sean McCarthy with our building department. Mr. McCarthy.
Good evening. This is the report for the month of December. And So permit activity in December, there was 80 permits issued, 45 of which were building permits. There was 38 certificates of occupancy approved and 1 updated certificate of occupancy. And 11 property record searches were conducted. Financially, that work brought in $113,915. On our budget, we spent just over $600. And at the halfway point now in December, we've spent just over about $6,000 of our budget. The Zoning Board of Appeals met on December 16th. There was a variance approved at 3 Terrace Close to construct a 1-story addition. Also, variances were approved for the property at 45 to 49 Beekman Avenue, which is the Mayapack National Bank building down to the post office. Those variances allowed the planning board to approve the construction of 16 apartments on the upper floors of those buildings. Also in December, a variance was approved to increase the height of a portion of the buildings at Edge on Hudson, which involves the block O and P development. This variance only applies to about 3 units of the 20 units proposed on that block. By the way, that variance is also what is consistent with the variance that was approved in 2018 for the same Block J townhouses that are currently being constructed. The next Zoning Board of Appeals meeting will be on February 17th. There's no meeting in January. The Planning Board met on December 17th, and they scheduled several public hearings, which actually occurred this month. And due to the date of this meeting, I'll fill you in on the January decisions. There was actually a special Planning Board meeting that was held on January 7th, and they entertained the resolution to approve that 20 units of additional townhouses in the Phase 3 Block O and P area at Edge on Hudson. The regular Planning Board meeting was on January 21st, and at that meeting, a resolution was authorized for the construction of a new single-family house at 5 Evergreen Way in the Manor. They also approved the subdivision of the Hudson Valley Writer Center at the Phelps Manor train station. They also approved a resolution for the construction, as I mentioned before, of the 16 residential apartments above the bank building. And also the discussion about the Block A Edge on Hudson development, which is the Chico's, was postponed. I'm sorry, I don't know if I was cut off there or not, but
Yeah, I didn't hear you.
just going back to the, at the Block A, at the planning board, the Block A, just, yes.
Thank you, Sean. I'm going to just cut into your report because I know we're going to have some questions and we're going to want to spend some time on it. As I said at the beginning of our meeting, the county executive, George Latimer, would be joining us for some important comments and discussion. And I wanted to allow him to do that given his busy schedule.
Absolutely.
George, welcome back to Sleepy Hollow.
Thank you, Mr.
virtually.
Mayor.
Look forward to seeing you physically.
Well, it's good to be with you. I promise to be brief because I know I'm cutting right into the middle of another presentation. I do appreciate the courtesy. What I wanted to just advise the board so you're aware of what's happening is really on the COVID vaccine distribution issue, which is probably the single biggest question that we're all getting from people in our communities. Right now, Westchester County is involved in 2 distribution sites in the county. The Westchester County Center that's been up now for almost 2 weeks. And at that location, we are vaccinating over 1,100 people a day. And we also have the Westchester County White Plains clinic that's located on Court Street in downtown White Plains. And there we're doing 300 to 350 vaccinations a day. That means in general, we're about 1,400 a day, and aggregate year to date, we're about over 16,000 people that have been vaccinated under Westchester County. Now, the state has structured a program where they're also giving vaccines to hospitals and to a number of pharmacies to be able to reach out to some of their constituents and their customers who are generally of the age of 65 and older. And so right now what we're all suffering from is a lack of vaccine availability coming from the federal government down to the state, down to the local level. For the practical realities for Sleepy Hollow, and the real reason why I wanted to come on and why I can keep this very short, there's a couple of things that I want to leave for your discussion. You don't have to respond tonight or even within the next couple of weeks, but to think about. The first issue is whether or not there are sites in the village that you would recommend for vaccine sites once we get to the general population. We know that we're not going to be able to vaccine everybody in one or two major locations, no matter how convenient they may be countywide. We're going to have to get into the localities, and we think the first best way is to consult the local government to determine where you think there might be a place to be, even if it's not a permanent situation, even if we set up the vaccine site for a week, 2 weeks, or something like that, in a setting where we have sufficient space. And certainly, Anthony or someone from your team can talk to us, and we'll be happy to go over what those specifics look like. The second thing that I think would be very helpful, if you can identify through your senior program, and I know you have a very good senior program in Sleepy Hollow, is those seniors who are homebound that won't be able to get out of their house for a vaccine no matter what. Because we are in the process of trying to identify how we will have mobile vaccination units, and we would deploy them to different communities on some set schedule. I hate to make this analogy, but the way we do the shredder is a specific day or 2 days or 3 days. And when we come into Sleepy Hollow, if you're in a position to be able to identify those seniors that would have to be vaccinated in their home, then we'd be able to do it fairly efficiently. We may not get to everybody, but we get to a significant number. At this stage of the game, the state has not told us when they're broadening from the current cohort, which is 65 and older, and people in very specific career fields, first responders, people in the medical field, individuals who are in what's considered essential services, like education, bus drivers, things of that nature. Those are who's eligible to do it now. But as we move into future cohorts, as we broaden the age level, we know that we want to reach out and try to be more helpful. The third thing that I'd like for you to consider and discuss is what obstacles exist within certain parts of the community of groups of people who may be reticent or unwilling to take the vaccine, and what can we strategize in advance with you to help get a positive message, a message of encouragement to people, helping them overcome some of the fears they may have or some of the objections they have. And that is something that we can discuss in our leisure, but we want to be ready so when we get the green light to move forward, we're able to work with you. And we know every community is different. The strategy that works in Sleepy Hollow is not the strategy that works in Somers. So we want to be flexible. And so with those three particular areas, any locations that you think could be prioritized for vaccination, developing a list of your own homebound residents so we could get to them quickly if we can allocate the time and the resources. And then in the third area, how we can reach your folks who might be resistant to taking the vaccine, and we will work together as partners to try to resolve that. Mr. Mayor, that's as fast as I can talk. I am a native New Yorker, but I wanted to at least give you that input. I'll take any questions if you think it's appropriate. If not, we can save questions for another time. It's at your discretion.
I know that we'll have some ideas about what might be an appropriate site right away, but since you're here, I'd like to give the board the opportunity, if there are any questions, please speak up, folks.
I just had a question. Are the local drugstores, CVS, Walgreens, going to take part in distributing the vaccine at that location?
We're not sure of how it's going to work because the state has done a couple of different things. They've contracted with CVS and Walgreens to provide the vaccine for the nursing homes and the nursing home staff. But then when they've gone for pharmacies that would vaccine the general senior population. They've gone to sort of community independent pharmacies. So whatever, whatever the governor and his executive team decides is how we'll react to it, John. So we're not really sure. But it looks like he's thinking, and I think probably rightfully so, of a combination of places, which makes it a little more difficult or illogical for the individual. But I figure they figure that they've got to go in as many different places as possible, because they'll get some people by being here, they'll get some people by being there, and try to target it in whatever way is most effective. If that thought is true, then they probably will use most of the pharmacies, but they'll give them a limited amount, because any pharmacy is going to have a limited area to do vaccination. And if we're going to get everybody vaccinated, we're going to need some larger spaces to work with, where people can come in and out. And I would caution you, in the larger spaces, take a lesson from the county. We turned over Glen Island and the county center for the purposes of COVID, and we don't have those facilities back yet. We don't expect to get them back. So I would be very careful of what I put on the list that might wind up being longer term rather than short term.
Thanks, George. That's good advice.
Anytime, John.
It's a good point about facilities, but we have to think about this is going to be going on for quite a while.
I feel very guilty that I have disrupted your meeting, and I feel the need to self-control and indicate that if you want to follow up tomorrow at any other time, I'm happy to do that at your discretion, Mr. Mayor.
We're happy for not unhappy about the interruption, I guess a better way. And our lives have been horribly disrupted by this virus. And it is something that we all need to work on together to try to overcome. So having you step in tonight is most helpful. And we thank you for that.
Thank you very much. You all have a safe evening, and I look forward to talking to you as soon as appropriate. Thanks a lot,
Take care.
everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you, George. Thank you.
Be well.
Bye-bye now.
Mr. McCarthy, thank you for your patience.
Sure.
I'm sure you can pick up the thread. And please
Absolutely.
continue with your report.
Would you like me to share my screen and just review what we went over, or pick up?
I think that would be most helpful. Yes, please.
Do that.
Ms. Giacchio, giving
can
Mr.
do it.
McCarthy.
He can do it.
Great, thank you.
Let's see.
It's a loud mouse you got there, Mr.
All right, am I up?
Yes.
Okay. So as I mentioned before, permit activity, 80 permits issued, most of which are building permits, 38 certificates of occupancy, 11 property searches, which is a little bit down from the month before, but still high for this time of the year. Revenue wise, that brought in just over $113,000. In comparison, this is what we've done throughout the year, and the green is this year. The reddish color is last year, and the blue is the year before. The spike that you see in November was actually due to several permits that were issued down at the river, as well as some permits that were issued up at the hospital. But as a breakdown, as you can see under building permits, there was almost $90,000 brought in for building permits in December, and that is a result of just under $4 million worth of work that went on in the village. This top line here. And as we move on under our budget, just spent a little bit over $600. And in
Thank you
comparison-
for, by the way, for qualifying that in writing. When you said it before, that I felt we were going to have to reassure the public that we do in fact pay our building department employees. You said you'd only spent $600, so.
Yeah, salaries are not included in that, obviously. But as you could see in our budget balance here, We're doing pretty well at this point in the year, and as Sarah knows, we spend most of our money in the spring. As I mentioned, at the zoning board, they had 3 applications, all of which were approved. The big one was the minor height variance that was granted down at the river. Again, a variance that is consistent with what has been already approved and which is being constructed down there now. The next zoning board meeting is February 17th. There's no meeting this month in January. Again, at the planning board, December was basically setting public hearings that occurred this month. So as I skipped forward, there was a special meeting. I think I'd left off talking about the planning board, and a special meeting was held on January 7th, in which the Block O and P down at Edge on Hudson, the 20 additional townhomes were approved. So that area is now subdivided and they can move forward with preparing their plans for construction of those units. And again, the planning board met last week, at which time they approved to authorize a resolution to be drafted for a new home upon Evergreen Way, as well as they approved the subdivision of the Hudson Valley Writers Center at Phillips Manor train station. And then the big thing was the approval of the 16 apartments that will be constructed over the bank building on Beekman Avenue. Let's see, what else do we have here? And then under development, if you want, I'll just skip to, let's see. Can you see this shot here? This is the townhouse Toll Brothers development. Along the railroad tracks to the right of your screen are the 3 Block I buildings, which comprise about 180 apartments. This shot was taken just at the end of December. They're continuing on with the facade development and the installation of the windows to enclose these 3 buildings. The building down at the bottom here, the green one, is the 17 condominium buildings that are the Toll Brothers construction. They're actually currently putting the brick facade on that, and as well as interior mechanical systems. Down at the bottom of the screen is the foundation for the second condominium building. I believe there's 15 units in that structure. They're actually getting ready to pour the slab on that any day now. And then just to the left of that, this is the area where the third condominium building will be built. And as you can see, laying on the ground are the piles that will be driven pretty soon. Just above on the screen here is the construction of the townhouse development. We actually have, in this area here, this building is actually already started. The framing on that is begun. And to the left here, they're getting ready to pour the slab for 6 more units on that site. Up at the top of the screen, this is the area adjacent to Kingston Point Park, and that is that Block O and P Phase 3 development that I talked about before. And also on the development side, this is a shot of the Hines development, which is the 246 apartments and the parking garage that everyone has been talking about. Again, at the end of December, this shot was taken, but as of today, they're working on the last section of the garage. So this crane is moving off the site and it's just about completed. They've also already poured the slabs on this wing of the building. And today we did an under slab inspection of this middle wing here, which will be poured, I believe, hopefully by the end of the week. And then we did another inspection on the walls for the wing that is adjacent to Legend Drive right here. And let's see, going back to the report. Skip through here, code enforcement. We had just 21 complaints filed, 17 violations were issued, and 4 appearance tickets. Court was held on December 2nd virtually. And there was 12 cases on the calendar and 4 cases were resolved. We also have court this week. There's 14 cases on that calendar. Several of the cases are administrative cases that will probably be resolved. And I'll report back to you on that next month. But if you have any questions.
So I have a question, Sean. Can you just elaborate on the subdivision at the Writer Center, what that entails?
Sure.
What do?
Stop this. So the Writer Center, as you know, it was reconstructed back in 94 and 96, at which time they entered into an agreement with the MTA for the use of that property. They're looking to purchase that right, and in doing that, the MTA needs to remove that parcel from the MTA overall property, which, as you know, continues throughout the riverfront. So your board actually changed and made an amendment to the zoning to add the Writer Center use as a permitted principal use in that zoning district. It was looped into the R2 zone, which is in Phelps Manor. And then the last part of that process was to have the planning board actually physically subdivide that parcel so they can file that with Westchester County and then work on an agreement for ownership. There'll be no change to the building. There's no change to the site. It's really just a mapping project, which is it's all been completed. There was one easement that had to be added to the map, and then once that's brought to our office, we'll have it signed, and then it can be filed with the county.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, and any updates up at the top of Beekman on those properties up there? The Japanese place and the place across the street?
Sure. Actually, both properties are back working. The former diner property, they're working right now due to the weather, they're working inside. All the under slab mechanical systems were installed. A new concrete slab was poured. They're framing out the interior walls now and in hopes to get that finished soon. And as soon as the weather breaks, they will be back on the outside finishing up the brickwork and the facade work. As far as the former sushi restaurant, a new contractor was brought in. And actually this past week, they began some of the site work to get the parking lot completed. They built a retaining wall and they poured some foundation, some footings for a foundation for a front entry that they were waiting to build. So that's back on track too.
Okay, great. Thank you for the updates.
Sure.
Any other questions for Mr. McCarthy? Thank you for, again, a thorough report.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll move on to our Chief of Police, Chief Boetti.
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Trustees. Since we last met for a report, we did have a snow event on December 20th that went through the 21st. During that event, due to this emergency, we impounded 2 vehicles that were in violation, and we also issued approximately 15 no parking snow emergency tickets. So after talking with Foreman Richard Gross about the current plan of our snow emergency no parking side, it operates much like the alternate side, where there'll be no parking this side emergency Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and the other side will say Monday, Friday, Sunday. The issue with this is that it changes over at midnight. So we're asking our residents to go out at midnight and move their vehicle to the other side of the street.
Mm-hmm.
Which, not only is it an inconvenience, it's also safety concerns having our residents go out in the middle of a blizzard or a snowstorm and move their vehicle. So we're going to propose something coming in February as far as making it a permanent side There's a couple of logistical issues that we have to work out, but we're looking forward to presenting that together. Which brought us to another idea as far as finding a program or even writing a program where we could have residents register their car with either a phone number or an email in the event that we need their car moved due to a snow emergency or one of our many events that we have going on when there isn't a pandemic in play. This way we'd be able to contact them and have them come move their car in lieu of their car getting impounded. I just want to follow up with the Latimer's COVID analysis as far as the vaccinations. Right now, as you mentioned, we're in cohort 1B, which is quite a large group of people. It encompasses, as you said, people 65 plus, public grocery workers, first responders being fire, police, public safety communications, and other sworn civilian personnel, such as court officers, correctional officers, P through 12 teachers, staff in schools, and also contractors that work in the school, all public transportation workers, and also homeless shelters and other residential programs and support housing. If you should have a question on whether you're eligible or not, you can go to Am I Eligible app, and there'll be a field. It's a New York State site. The field, you put in your name, it'll ask you several questions, and it'll tell you whether you're eligible. And it should also give you a listing of sites where you could sign up to take the vaccination. As the mayor had pointed out in the beginning of the meeting, currently we're at about approximately 235 active cases. Overall, we're at about over 1,400 village residents since March have contracted the virus. Just some other interesting numbers. As far as calls for service last year, we did 18,713 calls, down approximately 700 from the prior year, which we'll attribute to the pandemic. This Thursday, we're going to have our kickoff collaboration meeting as far as police reform, and we are looking forward to getting that started. That concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Chief. I wanted to note again the work that you and the department are doing to follow up on the bigoted statements that were made in the village over the last few months in the form of those stickers that were put up by the Patriot Front. And I know that the DA's office has made a statement and they've been involved. And it's good to know that you guys are continuing to work on that and seeing if we can track it down. It's also good to note that the community as a whole has very strongly come together and said, not here, not in our community. And I think that's the best possible signal that we do. We would, of course, like to know if any of these people are members of our community, and we'll continue to work with other police forces and with the county to follow up on that. So we thank you for that. But again, I think the strongest signal is for all of us to say no, and to say that quite strongly.
Yes, and we've also been in contact with some of our other private organizations that have been tracking this specific group. And we were the first agency to come up with photos that have been distributed now, at least regionally. I don't know if it's nationwide, but it's definitely out there regionally in the tri-state area.
Thanks for that. Any questions for the chief?
Yeah, I have one question, Chief. What time is the meeting on Thursday?
6.
6 o'clock.
Okay.
Chief, I just wanted to say it's good to hear that we're making improvements as far as our snow emergency protocols are concerned. I know it's been stressful for certain areas of the village, and whatever we do that is going to make things better for the community is great. But I would just urge you and Anthony as well, Giaccio that is, to make sure that we have signage that very, very clearly communicates to people what it is that we want them to do because it hasn't always been the case. And it's led to some confusion and a lack of productivity. So it's good news that we are taking steps to improve the situation, but I think the signage has to be done and considered a real priority as well. Thank you.
Yes, I believe, our best option is to make one side, this is the snow emergency side, no matter what day of the week it is. It keeps our residents safer instead of having to go out there at midnight to change the car over.
Mhm.
What else? All right, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to public comments. Mr. Giacchio, has anyone indicated that they would like to address the board?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right, I'll note that for anybody who is watching, we have another opportunity for public comments later on in the meeting. We'll move on to resolutions. We have 6. First one is on the tree inventory project. Could someone read and move the resolution?
Resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow to award tree inventory project. Whereas the Sleepy Hollow Village Board is desirous of completing a tree inventory of all trees on publicly owned land, and whereas proposals for this project was solicited and properly noticed, and whereas the tree committee and village administrator have reviewed the proposals, and whereas Arbor Pro of Yorba Linda, California was identified as the lowest qualified bidder at a cost of $13,300. And whereas the village administrator checked Arbor Pro's references and received favorable responses. And whereas funds for this project have been allocated in the 2020/2021 capital budget. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow awards the tree inventory project to Arbor Pro of Yorba Linda, California at a cost of $13,300, subject to the terms and conditions of the attached proposal. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Oh, thank you, Sandra. I think that was everyone, just in case any abstentions or nays. All right, then that was 7-0. Thank you. We have another resolution.
Mr. Mayor, for clarification, we said tree commission, but we weren't really sure. It's that joint tree committee that was formed a couple months ago that
Mhm.
recommended Arbor Pro. So I just want a clarification. Wasn't the tree committee as a whole. It was the joint committee.
Which was made up of members of various village committees. Thank you for that clarification. All right, next up, I believe it's the pipe repair, the water pipe repair project.
I'll take it. The resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow authorizing the village administrator to solicit bids for the Rockefeller Preserve Waterline Repair Project. Whereas the village administrator has requested permission to solicit bids for the Rockefeller Preserve Waterline Repair Project, and whereas specifications for this work have been completed by Dolph Rotfeld Engineering. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow authorizes the village administrator to solicit bids for the Rockefeller Preserve Waterline Repair Project. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and second. Sam, was that you on the second?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So trustees Gaglione and Gonzalez, I just note that Dolph Rotfeld Engineering is part of a larger engineering firm now. So we should start using that other name. And we know who's actually doing the work, but we should recognize the new name of the company. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All right, let me rephrase that. And it worked this time. Everybody voted yes. So say aye or indicate.
Aye.
Well,
Aye.
everybody did. Thank you, trustee Levy. And the resolution is approved 7-0.
Yeah,
All right, the next resolution is on also water system, but on our long-awaited reservoir repair.
I can do that one. Resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow authorizing the village administrator to solicit bids for Rockefeller Preserve Reservoir Repair Project. That's a mouthful. Whereas the village administrator has requested permission to solicit bids for the Rockefeller Preserve Reservoir Repair Project, and whereas specification for this work has been completed by Dolph Engineering, now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow authorizes the village administrator to solicit bids for the Rockefeller Preserve Reservoir Repair Project. So moved. And to your point, Mr. Mayor, we should adjust the name of the engineering firm on the resolution.
It's AI Engineers is the parent company.
Okay,
So moved as amended, trustee Gonzalez?
so moved.
Yeah,
Seconded.
thank you. Moved in and I'm sorry, the second was from trustee Gebler. Any discussion? All in favor say aye, all or say or indicate aye.
Aye.
I believe that is also unanimous. So we'll move on to the next resolution.
I'll take it. Resolution of the Village Board of the Village of Sleepy Hollow on a SCAR approval. Whereas the village board has received a stipulation of settlement stipulation in small claims assessment reviews, SCAR. And whereas the SCAR proceeding is the year 2020, the petitioner is Weisskopf and Sokolowski, address 7 Mahoney Place, tax lot 115.11-4-26. Assessment was $130,000, reduced by $15,000. Assessment will be $115,000. Whereas the village assessor has approved the stipulation, now therefore be it resolved that the village board approves the stipulation and authorizes its filing, and be it further resolved, the tax refunds are authorized in the amount set forth in the reduced by column divided by 1,000 and multiplied by the tax rate in effect during the year in question, subject to adjustment by an increase of not more than 5% or a reduction in any amount upon final calculation after the stipulation are so ordered and entered. And be it further resolved that any of the village mayor, village administrator, and village assessor is authorized to make and accept amendments and revisions to the stipulation so long as the same either are not material or are not contrary to the village's interest or responsibilities, and in either case are acceptable in form and substance to village council. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say or indicate aye.
Aye.
Abstentions, nays. Again, that was 7-0. Next up, resignation of an employee. If someone could read this resolution, please.
Want me to do it?
I can read the resolution. I think I need somebody else to move adoption, correct?
I have it up. I'll read it. Resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow accepting retirement notice. Whereas Doug DeCariano submitted his letter of retirement as heavy motor equipment operator in the Department of Public Works dated January 15th, 2021, and effective January 29th, 2021. And whereas said letter of retirement must be formally accepted by the Village of Sleepy Hollow Board of Trustees. And whereas the village by resolution number 2023/138/03 dated July 15th, 2003, adopted a policy for employee termination and rehire. And now therefore be it resolved that the village accepts the letter of retirement of Douglas DeCariano and finds that the termination rehire policy of July 15th, 2003 applies. And be it further resolved that the copy of the policy will be placed in his personnel record with proof of service. And be it further resolved that the mayor and the Board of Trustees would like to thank Mr. DeCariano for his 39 years, wow, of dedicated service to the village and wishes him well. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, and I would say wow as well. I believe we all wish Doug a healthy, happy retirement and healthy, happy in whatever further endeavors he undertakes, and thank him for an enormous amount of time and dedication to this village. And so thank you, Doug, from all of us. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Or indicate, rather. Anyway, that was 7-0 as well. And we have one more resolution setting grievance night.
Resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow announcing Tax Grievance Day. Be it resolved that the mayor and the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow, sitting as the Board of Assessment Review, will meet virtually for the purpose of hearing complaints on the 2021-2020 tentative assessment roll between the hours of 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. on February 16, 2021, using Zoom ID number 886-8712-0264. Be it further resolved that the village clerk will properly notice the meeting. So moved.
Seconded.
And seconded. At the beginning of the meeting, I said that we were going to have further details on this. 4 hours of looking at you guys in a Zoom session. Oof. Wow. Okay.
We'll have to figure something out.
Yes, indeed. Well, we got a few weeks. All right. All in favor, say aye, please. Or indicate
Aye.
aye. Nays, abstentions. That again was 7-0. Okay. We'll move on to old business and new business. Anybody have any old business and new business they would like to raise?
I'll just say that when they were talking about the vaccination program and the homebound, the pantry does have a homebound delivery program. So, I mean, we do work through Sleepy Hollow Rec, but we also visit College Arms. And so it's not going to be comprehensive, but at least we can kind of contribute our list to those people that we already know are homebound.
Thank you. I would take this opportunity also to say we'll have to put our heads together and see if we can come up with a recommendation of a place in the village. I mean, I had an obvious one, I think, but it's part of the school system, so that depends on what they say, obviously. But I would like to note that I've had questions from village residents saying, are we going to do this? Are we going to reach out? And the answer so far had been no, in part because we don't have the skills to do this. We're really good at certain things. We have no skills when it comes to injecting people, and not about to start. We've actually had some people who are professionals volunteer to say they would help with that. And again, part of the issue was how many vaccine doses are out there. And one of the things that I think has been one of the problems of what I'm hearing from Phelps, for example, and others, is that there is something, if not a shortage, something close to it. There's not, everybody could use more than what they're actually getting already. So I think it'll be a while before they start to be in a position where they can expand beyond the areas that are doing it now. We'd all certainly welcome that. as has been said, we're over 230 active cases in the village. Just to put that in context, we were somewhere in the teens back in September. So it has really climbed a lot, way over 10 times. And it just, in the last 2 days alone, we had 48 new active cases. And again, they're all over the village. There's no part of the village that is untouched by this. And one other thing that I should just say, because it's come up, it came up at the beginning of the meeting, I think before we went live, and I just want to reiterate this to folks, and that is we're not getting Phelps numbers. Phelps is doing a phenomenal job caring for people who are COVID positive. So there's, I don't know how many people going into the hospital, but the list that we get is people with Sleepy Hollow addresses. So it is local residents. It's not whoever shows up in the hospital there. So it's us, and it's still climbing. It's still really serious. So please do all the things that you know to do to try to help us together keep this in check. If no other new business, old business, Deputy Clerk Bucci, any communications?
Yes, we did receive two. One was a letter addressed to the mayor from the Rivertown Clergy Association. And the other one was an email addressed to the mayor and board from Lauren Connell. That was it. All were distributed to who they were addressed to.
Okay, we will move on to public comments then. Mr. Giacchio, has anybody indicated that they would like to address the board?
No comments, Mr. Mayor.
In that case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. I will plead for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I think John and Glenn, one of you second it,
I
please.
seconded it.
Oh, okay, all right. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, we'll take that also as a goodbye, a wave. All right. Thank you all. Be well. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.